So we're here today with Liz Nicholson, the wine director at Maialino restaurant in the Gramercy Park Hotel. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Levi.
Thanks for taking the time to see us.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Now, Maialino is a Roman-inspired trattoria in the Gramercy Park Hotel near Park Avenue South.
It is. The restaurant was actually kind of a brainchild between both Danny Meyer, who spent a lot of time in Rome, kind of right after school. He was working as a tour guide for his father, who had a travel agency in St. Louis, and he worked in Rome after he graduated, leading tours, and that's kind of where the name Maialino comes from. He found that he liked eating the roast suckling pig, and which is our signature dish here, and his bosses were calling him Maialino for Little Meyer, and since he kept, choosing to eat the roast suckling pig for lunch, it eventually evolved into Maialino, and that's what the restaurant's named after. But also our chef, Nick Anderer, spent a good amount of time working in Rome, and so as they kind of started to come together to just the idea, the zygote of this restaurant came together, Danny and Nick kind of found they had a lot of shared passions for Rome, and I wasn't there at this point, but I was seeked out eventually for my passion for Italian wine, and now I'm part of the puzzle.
Awesome. So you've been here a little over a year.
Yeah, I came in 5 months into the restaurant. I replaced the opening wine director, and I've been here about a year and 3 months now.
Great. What have been some of the real interesting challenges that have come up that you've maybe refined in terms of the program? What are some of the changes that you've made?
Well, when I started, there was the By the Glass list had some very basic, well, I shouldn't say basic, but obvious, I feel, choices. There was a Chardonnay by the glass, a Pinot Noir by the glass, Chianti by the glass, a Brunello by the glass, a Barolo, a Pinot Grigio. I think that there were a lot of very standard, like, anyone can come in and go, oh, this list is Italian. Okay, I feel comfortable ordering a Pinot Grigio. Or I drink Chardonnay. Oh, look, there's a Chardonnay on here, even if it was an Italian Chardonnay. And my first concern was that based on the clientele and just the staff, I wouldn't be able to push anyone into one of these 800 plus fantastic native varietals, which I kind of am a big pusher of and a champion of in Italy. And so my first move was I replaced the Pinot Noir with a Galliopo, a light stainless steel Galliopo, and that was kind of like test number one.
I think they're roughly the same in terms of sales in the market in general. Galliopo, of course, is
a huge
market seller, the wine from Calabria.
Yeah, Galliopo, a native grape from Calabria. Definitely, everyone's heard of it. Everybody's asking, where can I get more Galliopo?
Flying off the shelf.
Flying off the shelf. It really was, though. I mean, I feel like the staff was initially really kind of excited. It was like, what is this? Like, this is new. And so I kind of took that and ran with it. And over time, there's points, like right now I actually did recently put a Chardonnay back on. There is actually Pinot Grigio on, but I kind of have like a stipulation for them that they can't be kind of textbook average. They have to be, our Pinot Grigio is a Ramato. And then the Chardonnay it's a little bit more modern, but that was kind of me like throwing a bone out to the team when everyone is asking for California Chardonnay, and it was like, fine, I'll get an oak Sicilian, or not California-like Chardonnay.
Which will remain nameless.
Which will remain nameless. And I've just slowly, now we've got Cornaline and Etna Rossos and, pushing people into weird grape names. And I think that some of the staff at first was a little bit, I made them a little bit anxious to have to learn all these new varietals and then in turn try to educate their guests about them in selling them. But I think that I've got a good amount of staff that have just taken and run with it, and they love it, and they're just eating it up. And it's nice to see the staff evolving along with the list in their knowledge, and it's a free education for them at the end of the day, and I think a lot of them really appreciate it.
One of the things that I've seen that a lot of sommeliers that we've spoken with have credited is the power of their staff and working with their staff, and really acting as translators for the guests for what the wine director or the sommelier wants to do, and then changing that into actual sales onto a table. So what you think is that maybe by taking away some of the more obvious choices on the menu, some of the more internationally known varietals or more varietal focus that are for more well-known names, that you maybe expose people to some of the finer, more intricate, regional, maybe smaller production wines that are throughout Italy? Is that fair to say? Or?
Definitely fair to say. I think that what's exciting about what we've been doing here is that not only the staff is getting an education, but I think that our guests leave who were able to, get over the fact that they had to take a suggestion on a wine they'd never heard of, but then they love it, and then they leave and they have this sense of feeling like, I had that at Maialino, and I don't think that there's anywhere else I can have it. I mean, obviously you and I know that in New York City there's a lot of cool wine bars doing a lot of cool things, and the reality is there probably are other places, but it's getting people to open their mind, step outside that Pinot Noir Cabernet box, that Chardonnay Pinot Grigio box, and getting them to recognize that there are a lot of other exciting grapes, lesser known, small production. And especially with Italy, I think what's so heartwarming and what really connects with me is that, I mean, I've been there and I've met these people and I've been on these estates, and at the end of the day, they're farmers. Obviously there's the big wineries that have, the name attached to the winery. They probably haven't been in the vineyard in a while. They've been touring, marketing their wines and stuff, but a lot of the really great wines are the farmers are making them, and they're really just hanging on to a piece of their heritage and their history. They come from this small town. This small town is in this native varietal, and they see it as their job to not let that varietal fall by the wayside and become extinct to the more known Cabernets and Sangioveses and whatnot of the world. And so when somebody's hanging on and saying, I grow Pella Verga, it's only grown in and around this little town of Verduno, but that's my heritage, and I want to make sure that I'm still keeping it alive. And then I always tell my staff, like, it's kind of our job to help make sure these rare birds don't go extinct, and that people do know about them, and that people then might see it on a different list and say, oh, there's a Pella Verga. I had one of those Maialino. It was delicious, So
you're trying to create a distinctive experience for guests by finding things that are a little bit out of the way that you have to really search out. Is that true?
It is true. The biggest problem is that then they want to know where they can buy it, and you can't always buy it at a retail store.
You know that you succeeded then in actually creating some interest. So what are some of the wines that you've picked out to show us today that maybe are examples of finding smaller, less well-known items that really over-deliver?
Yes. Well, one of the first wines I selected was the Pignol from Fulvio Bressan in Friuli. One of the first things that I love about this wine is that it's a 99 vintage, and it's still available in the market, and he's still got 97 in the barrel at the winery. And he, it's kind of nice to find, obviously, wines with age on it, but then especially when you get a grape like Pignolo, which also can be shortened, people will, dialect-wise, shortened to Pignol, as Fulvio has. And it's considered one of the most age-worthy varietals out of Friuli. And there's just unfortunately not enough chances, I think, to try it. And then even when you do, like I know Guerman's making one now, and actually Radicon is starting to work with Pignolo as well. They were doing their first vintage of it in 2009 when I was there. And so it's nice that you can get them, but usually A, they're expensive.
Sure.
And then B, they're a young vintage, and it is an age-worthy wine. So for me, it's really exciting to get to court guests, and we were for several months. Actually, this was in our By the Glass program. We were highlighting, Northeast Italy, and it was cool that someone could come in. They didn't have to be sold on getting a, splurging for $100 bottle of some grape they've never heard of before. They could, for I think it was like $15 actually it was less. It was like $13. Get a 3-ounce pour of it, or double the price for a full glass for a 6-ounce glass. And it helped really open people's minds, and it was cool to start learning of the regulars who were like, oh no, I've been in like 4 times. I've tried this one and this one and this one, and it's exciting to see people who are embracing what I'm trying to offer by having some of these more unique wines open by the glass.
Is that one of the most satisfying aspects of the entire job, is seeing that connection be made from people that you know growing the wine to then people you see drinking the wine and coming back for it?
Definitely. It makes me feel like I'm doing my part in saving the species.
Something that's real,
Yeah,
and that
definitely.
you've seen, but maybe other people haven't seen.
Yeah, and I mean, and additionally, when I went there, I had Fulvio just kind of cracked me up. He's working with the whole Vini Veri group. He's
which is a natural biodynamic producer group of some of the top producers in Italy, especially more focused towards the north.
yeah, especially more focused in the north. And he's in the vineyard with them, and he points to this portion of a couple grappeles, some grape bunches, and he says, "You see how these are burned right here?" And I say, "Yeah." And he said, "That's because I thought it was." He's like, "I decided to cut back the greens there." He's like, "I cut it back." He's like, "I should have never touched this. This was my fault." He was kind of trying to say, like, if I had just let the vine be natural, these grape bunches would have never gotten scorched. But instead, I had to intervene, and woe is me. Now I've ruined these grape bunches.
I have the same speech when people come to my apartment for the first time. I show them the mistakes that I've made in terms of decoration. I know exactly where it's coming from. So what else do we have here today?
Well, so when one of my first special programs, so I guess I'll quickly interject and say, another thing I was faced with when I started at Maialino was they had purchased this enomatic machine, which is essentially a wine dispensing unit,
like a Cruvenet.
Yeah, Cruvenet, and I was going to say refrigeration, but it holds bottles intact for 4 to 5 weeks, keeping them totally like in an anaerobic state, and then it holds them at temperature. So what it allows you to do is open bottles that you would be very skeptical to open and pour by the glass, because if you didn't sell through the whole bottle, you likely would have a lot of loss. But the enomatic machine allows you to keep bottles intact, and that's what has allowed me to kind of open some of these cool, weirder, older bottles. So the first phase that I did, so when I started, they weren't actually using the machine. They had bought it with the intention of just pouring all red wines by the glass in there, and found within days of opening that with high volume, the machine it couldn't keep up. So it kind of fell.
Because it takes a while for it to dispense.
It takes a while. You can only dispense one pour position at a time.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So
yes.
You can't pour 2 bottles from the machine at once.
No, and you can't be pouring 2 at the same time. And
obviously with the busy bar.
Every
time I've come here, it's been extraordinarily busy. So always the bar is full. So
the bar is always full, and they're also
don't want to wait.
And they're also putting wine up for service in the trattoria. So it was very frustrating, and it kind of got abandoned very quickly in all the craziness of opening rush.
One of the most talked about openings in the last 3 years, I think.
I know. I wish I was here for it, but I was actually still in Italy. So
you were doing your homework.
I was doing my homework.